I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling my guts about how my wife, Lisa, cheated on me. I mean, we had a good run, or so I thought. We got married 5 years ago after a pretty whirlwind courtship. I was an engineer working in the space tech industry, specifically space simulation chambers, which is probably relevant considering what I found out later. Lisa was a real piece of work. Bitchy, manipulative, always throwing tantrums if she didn't get her way. But she was also gorgeous, charming, and good at pretending she cared. I guess I ignored the red flags because I was blinded by the way she looked at me when she wanted something. Things weren't perfect, though. I noticed she was acting distant sometimes, more than usual. She'd cancel plans at the last minute, or she'd be on her phone more often than not, laughing at something with her friends I couldn't see. I chalked it up to stress at work or her busy schedule, but deep down, I felt this gnawing doubt. Then she started coming home late from girls' nights, claiming she'd just been out with her friends. But I'd find her phone notifications, random messages from some guy named Trent, and her getting defensive whenever I asked about it. She'd deny everything, call me paranoid, tell me I was overthinking. Honestly, I wanted to believe her because I loved her. Fuck, I still love her, but I should have known better. One night I was working late in my garage, tinkering with some new tech for our space simulation chamber project. It's kind of my thing. My job is to simulate conditions of space for our clients. It's complicated but fascinating work. I had the door open, headphones in, when I heard a strange noise. It was faint at first, almost like muffled talking coming from Lisa's phone. I looked over and saw her message app open, and there it was, texts that made my stomach drop. Not just flirtatious, but downright explicit. Words like "can't wait to see you again," "miss your touch," and even some shit about resource extraction, which I only later realized was a cover story for their space-themed role plays during secret encounters in a space chamber she'd set up for her cosmic harvesting projects. Yeah, I know how crazy that sounds, but it's true. I froze. My heart started pounding like I'd just run a marathon. The worst part, she was clearly lying when I confronted her. I remember her face twisting into this bitchy smirk, trying to dismiss it all as just a joke. She was stressed, or some bullshit about how I didn't understand her. She said I was being paranoid, that I was jealous, that she was just talking to some guy for fun, that nothing was serious. But I knew better. That resource extraction shit, it was code. They were meeting in a space simulation chamber she'd convinced me was just for experiments, but it was some kind of cover for them screwing around. And she kept lying, telling me I was crazy for even suspecting something. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife was cheating on me with some engineer, another guy who worked in the same field, no less, whose name I later found out was Mark. They'd been sneaking around for months. I felt angry, betrayed, completely gutted. How did I not see this coming, or did I? Part of me had known, but I refused to accept it. Still, there was this raw, burning feeling in my chest, like my entire world was crashing down around me. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there staring at her phone, trying to piece everything together. That's when I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't entirely sure what. All I knew was I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next days were a blur of anger and confusion. I tried to keep my cool, but every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her differently. That smug, bitchy smirk she always wore when she was hiding something made my stomach churn. The way she dismissed my concerns, called me paranoid, whatever. I knew she was lying, and I wasn't going to let her keep playing me for a fool. I needed a plan, something that would really hit her where it hurt, something to make her understand that I wasn't the idiot she thought I was. I started digging into her phone, her emails, her social media. I had to be careful. I didn't want to seem suspicious, especially since she was already on edge. What I found was a mess of messages, pictures, and plans. She'd been meeting Mark, her engineer lover, in the space chamber, that same damned simulation room I'd built for work. He'd come over late at night into the secret resource extraction project they'd been running. It wasn't just sex, either. It was some twisted game, calling it cosmic harvesting, role plays in the chamber, pretending to be explorers or astronauts. I couldn't believe it. She'd lied to my face, told me she was doing research, when in reality she'd been screwing around with him behind my back, right under my nose. What made it worse was the way she lied so easily when I confronted her. The first time I did, I caught her in the act, her lips trembling, trying to come up with some bullshit about how it was just harmless fun, how I was trying to control her, how I didn't understand her kinky side. Yeah, right, kinky side. She was cheating with my engineer, Mark, in the very space chamber I designed for our project, and she had the nerve to call me possessive. I wanted to punch her, scream at her, but I held back. Something about the way she was so dismissive just enraged me even more. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without a plan. That's when I decided I'd set a trap. I started recording her calls, saving her messages, even hacking into her email account. Don't ask me how. I was desperate. I wanted proof, undeniable evidence. I knew if I just told her I'd caught her, she'd deny everything, maybe even turn the tables. I needed her to slip up, to confess on her own. I also made sure to keep an eye on Mark, a shadow stalking his social media, tracing every move he made. I wasn't going to let him get away either. This was about more than just some affair. It was about integrity, respect, and protecting myself from being the fool in a game I didn't start. One night, I got what I was after. I was in my garage, pretending to work on a new prototype, when I saw her message pop up, an exchange between her and Mark, talking about their cosmic harvesting sessions, planning to meet again. The message was explicit enough to make my blood boil. That's when I decided I'd record her next conversation, bait her into admitting everything. I set up a voice recorder disguised as a pen in my desk drawer. I knew she'd come home late again, probably to meet him in the chamber once I was asleep. I waited, heart pounding, the room silent except for the sound of my own breathing. Sure enough, she slipped in around midnight, quiet as a cat. She tiptoed past my door, clutching her phone, and I pressed record. I stayed completely still, pretending to be asleep, but I heard every word. Her voice was husky, breathless, talking to Mark about their plans, their fantasies in the chamber, how she loved the thrill of it all. I felt like I was going to vomit. The betrayal was so raw, so sharp, it physically hurt. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I had my proof now, undeniable evidence. I didn't need to confront her anymore. I had what I needed to finally put an end to her lies and to this nightmare she'd created. As she left the room, whispering about their next exploration, I quietly turned off the recorder, my hands trembling. I sat down, staring at the device, trying to process what I'd just heard. I was furious, hurt, and utterly betrayed, but I also felt a strange sense of resolve. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to let her keep dragging me through this. Whatever came next, I was ready. I just didn't know how much worse things could get from here. The next morning, I woke up with a terrible hangover of rage and heartbreak. The recordings I had made were sitting on my desk, taunting me. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. This wasn't some petty argument over money or chores. This was betrayal of the worst kind, and I had to decide how to handle it. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to blow everything up right then and there, to scream and yell until she admitted everything herself. But I knew better. That wouldn't get me what I wanted, not really. I needed to be strategic, cold even. I spent the day gathering my thoughts. I replayed every moment, every sign I'd missed, every lie she'd told. I looked at her, sitting there pretending to be innocent, and it made me sick. Lisa was good at pretending she was the victim, that I was the jealous idiot who just couldn't handle her independence. But I saw through her bullshit now. She'd been lying to my face for months, sneaking around in my own house, in my own damned project. It was like she had been living in a parallel universe, one where I didn't exist, where her secret resource extraction was just code for screwing her engineer lover. Around noon, I finally decided enough was enough. I sent her a message telling her I needed to talk, that I knew everything about Mark, the chamber, the lies. I didn't want to meet her face to face yet, not until I was ready. I just wanted her to know I had her dead to rights. When she responded with her usual dismissive attitude, telling me I was overreacting, and to stop being paranoid, I knew I had to act fast. I wasn't going to get more honest confessions from her that way. I had to force her hand. That evening, I set up my camera in the living room, placed the recorder where she wouldn't suspect, and waited. She came home around 9 p.m., flustered, trying to act normal. I played the part of the naive, hurt husband, asking her how her day went, pretending I didn't know what I'd uncovered. She started to get defensive, but I kept pushing, acting calm but firm until she finally cracked. Her face twisted into that bitchy smile she always wore when she was trying to deceive me. She told me she'd been meeting her friends, that there was nothing more to it. I pointed out her messages, her lies, the recordings I'd made. Her eyes widened and her composure broke. She threw up her hands, rolled her eyes, and started lying like a pro. "You don't understand," she snapped. "It's just some silly role-play stuff in the chamber. It's not what you think. You're overreacting. Mark's just a friend, and I didn't mean for it to get this far." She kept insisting she was just experimenting, that she was bored and wanted excitement, that I was just insecure. The fact that she could lie so effortlessly made me realize how deep her manipulation ran. She was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself, all while hiding the truth behind her bitchy facade. I felt my fists clenching, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't believe how someone I loved, someone I trusted, could treat me like this. The betrayal cut so deep it was hard to breathe. But I also knew I had her now, with the recordings, the messages, everything. I had the proof I needed to shut her down, to make her face what she'd done. I stayed calm, even as rage bubbled inside me. I told her she had to leave, that I couldn't stay in the same house with her, not after this. She scoffed, acting like she was the victim, calling me crazy and possessive. But I was done playing her game. This was her last chance to be honest, and she failed miserably. When she finally stormed out that night, I felt a strange mixture of relief and despair. Relief that I finally knew the truth, and despair because I realized how much I'd been blind, how much I'd trusted her. I sat there, staring at the recordings, feeling an ache in my chest I couldn't shake. I had to decide what was next. Was I going to fight for this marriage, or was I finally going to let go? Either way, I knew I couldn't keep living in this lie. I'd been betrayed, used, and played. But now I had the weapon to fight back. The question was, what was I going to do with it? The following days were the hardest I've ever gone through. After she left, the house felt emptier than ever, like the walls were closing in on me. I had all the proof I needed, but somehow that didn't make it any easier. Every time I looked at her side of the bed or saw her favorite mug still sitting on the counter, I felt this jarring mix of anger and loss. I kept replaying her lies, the way she brushed everything off, acting like I was crazy. Honestly, I was starting to question whether I'd been blind all along. How could I have missed the signs? Or worse, did I ignore them because I didn't want to believe she'd do something like this? I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her get away with it, no way. She thought she was so clever, sneaking around her space adventure with Mark, hiding in that damned chamber I built for work. But I had everything on record now. I wasn't about to let her spin her lies to make me the bad guy. I decided I'd take the evidence straight to a lawyer. I started looking into divorce options, thinking about how I'd protect what was mine, my work, my project, myself. She had betrayed everything I stood for, and I wasn't going to let her walk away scot-free. One afternoon, I set up a meeting with a lawyer I found through some recommendations. The guy was sharp, no nonsense, just what I needed. I laid out everything, her lies, the secret meetings, the recordings, the messages. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing, what my rights were, how I could prevent her from screwing me over financially or emotionally. I wasn't planning on just walking away without a fight. I've been a fool for so long, trusting her blindly, but now I was done. I needed to protect myself from her bitchy manipulations, and I knew I had enough to do that. Then came the confrontation I didn't see coming. I told Lisa I was done, that I knew everything, that I didn't want her back. She was furious, of course. She called me controlling, insecure, and a bunch of other names I didn't even care about anymore. She threw tantrums, swore she'd ruin me if I went through with divorce, and accused me of being jealous and possessive all along. She said I was just mad because I couldn't handle her independence, that she was entitled to her own fun. But I didn't care any more about her excuses. I had my evidence, my decision made. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into feeling guilty for wanting to end this nightmare. The moment she stormed out, I felt this strange sense of relief. The weight of the betrayal started to lift, but there was still that lingering ache of heartbreak. I knew I had to start over, rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, pouring my anger and frustration into my projects. I also started seeing a therapist, trying to make sense of everything. It was a mess of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, and I didn't know how to handle it all at once. But I also knew I had to stay strong. That's what I kept telling myself. Stay strong, don't let her win. I was determined not to be the guy left devastated while she moved on with her new resource extraction lover or whatever twisted game they were playing. As I sat there, planning my next moves, I realized I'd spent so much time trusting her, loving her, believing she was my partner in life. But she turned out to be someone else entirely, someone manipulative, selfish, and completely unfaithful. And honestly, I felt betrayed, yes, but also a little bit free. For the first time in years, I could breathe again without that cloud of her lies hanging over me. Still, I wondered how I'd ever look at her the same way. Trust was shattered, completely. And now I had to decide how to rebuild myself, if I even wanted her back in my life at all. After everything that had happened, I knew I couldn't keep pretending things would go back to normal, because they wouldn't. The trust was gone, shattered in 1,000 pieces, and I was left to pick up the rubble of what I once thought was a stable marriage. I made a firm decision. I was going to move on, no matter how much it hurt. I couldn't keep living. In the aftermath of her lies, her betrayal, her manipulations, I had to detach, heal, and rebuild my life from scratch. I started by removing her from my house, changing locks, packing up her stuff, making it clear she was no longer welcome. Honestly, the act of packing her belongings was a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I found old photos, little souvenirs of better times, and felt a pang of nostalgia and anger. How did I let it get this far? How did someone I trusted so blindly turn out to be so different? The betrayal was hard enough to take, but facing the reality of her deceit was even worse. Still, I kept telling myself, this is for me. This is the only way I can begin to heal. I also reached out to a counselor. I needed someone to help me process everything. This betrayal, the feelings of inadequacy, the flashbacks of her lies. Talking to someone who didn't judge me, who could help me make sense of my feelings, was a huge relief. I learned that I wasn't weak for trusting her, but that I had been naive. Trusting someone blindly isn't a crime, it's just part of loving. But now trust had to be rebuilt and I wasn't in any rush. I just wanted to get through each day without feeling like I was drowning. Meanwhile, I threw myself into work, especially into my space simulation projects. It was the one thing that kept me grounded. I reconfigured the chamber, added new security measures, and even started working on a side project, something to take my mind off the pain. I also started dating again, cautiously. It was strange at first, trying to open up to new people after everything, but I realized I couldn't let this woman's betrayal define my entire life. I needed to find myself again, rebuild my confidence, and trust someone new, someone who would respect me. Of course, the scars remained. Every now and then, a thought would creep in, reminding me of what she did, how she lied, and how I was so blind. But I was learning to live with it. I realized I couldn't change the past, but I could control what I did with it. I would never forget what she did, but I wouldn't let it consume me. I'd take this pain, learn from it, and move forward. Stronger. Looking back now, I see how much I've grown. I learned the importance of boundaries, of listening to my gut, and never again ignoring those small, nagging doubts. I've come to accept that not everyone is worth trusting blindly. Sometimes, you have to see the truth for what it is, no matter how painful it gets. And I've learned that revenge isn't always about retaliation. Sometimes it's about taking control, standing up for yourself, and refusing to be a victim. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know one thing for sure. I won't let her betrayal define me. I'll come out of this better, stronger, and wiser. And that's the best revenge I could ever hope for. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I never imagined I'd be the guy who'd get betrayed like this, and I certainly didn't expect to find out that the woman I loved and trusted had been hiding such a secret, not just from me but from herself. The betrayal cut deep, made me question everything I'd built, everything I believed in. But in the end, I think I've gained a new sense of strength, one I didn't know I had. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that trust, while essential, isn't something to be given blindly. It's fragile and it needs to be earned every single day. I also realized that revenge isn't about getting even or hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your peace of mind, and your future. For me, that meant cutting out the toxic relationship and focusing on myself. I had to rebuild my sense of worth, my confidence, and my happiness. That's what I've been doing, and I intend to keep doing it. Life after betrayal isn't easy. There are moments of loneliness, flashes of anger, and times when I feel that old pain creeping back. But I also feel something else: hope. Hope that I can move beyond this, that I can find someone who truly respects me, who values honesty and loyalty. I refuse to let her lies define my life or my future. So, to anyone out there who's going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore those red flags or dismiss your feelings. If you find yourself in a situation where someone is sneaking around, lying, hiding things, it's time to face the truth, because ultimately your happiness and sanity depend on it. No one deserves to be betrayed or used, and you're worth more than the pain she tried to inflict. This whole experience has been brutal, but it's also been a wake-up call. I've learned what real strength looks like. It's not about revenge or anger. It's about standing tall, accepting what's happened, and choosing to move forward, even if it's one small step at a time. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity and resilience. And that, I think, is the real victory.